softly and tenderly, Jesus is...
I was raised loosely Catholic, so I was baptized as an infant, and then we would go to church maybe a few times per year on the special holidays. And so I went to Baylor, and I had some friends that were pretty faithful and tried to get me to go to church, and I would never go to church with them. I just was too busy and didn't want to be bothered with that. And then John and I met at the end of my senior year of my college, and when we got married, we were in Houston, and John would encourage me to go to church with him, and we actually went and visited a couple of churches. But I never felt connected, and I always had an excuse for why we shouldn't go, and 9 out of 10 times we wouldn't go. And then we ended up deciding we were going to move to Fort Worth, and I realized once we were in Fort Worth, it was kind of his territory, and it was his turf, so we were going to Southside. And Southside was where John was born and raised here, and so we started coming to church here. But it was strange. I felt so disconnected. I felt welcomed, I felt loved, and I felt accepted, but something was missing. I felt like everybody had drank the Kool-Aid and had left me out of it. And so I asked John if we could start studying, or if I could start studying with Kyle Kaiser, who was the preacher at the time. So I called Kyle, and of course he was thrilled. And we started meeting over there. Kyla and Carrie were in 3rd grade when we were studying over there, and we would go over there after work every week in the evenings and would study with Kyle. And we did that for almost a year. And one Thursday night we were sitting there, and I'll never forget it. I remember the table, I remember where I was sitting, and Kyle looked at me and he said, "What is holding you back, Kory, from being baptized?" And I looked at him and I thought, I don't have a single excuse, but truthfully for my willfulness. It was the one piece of control that I could hang over everyone's head that I hadn't done yet. And it all just kind of came to me then that that was one piece of control I should probably let go. Kyle said, "Let's open up the church." It was probably 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. He said, "We'll make sure the water's warm and turn on the lights." And so we packed up to leave his house, and I said, "But before we go, I don't want a scene, and I don't want anybody there." And I think the minute I walked out the door, Denise Kaiser was on that phone calling people and telling them to get there. So by the time we got to church, it was a really sweet group of people here. There was about maybe 20 or 30 people. And so I went up to get baptized, but I didn't put this part of the story in there. I was 9 months pregnant with Catherine, my 17-year-old. And we had a little trouble zipping up the baptismal gown over my belly. I was a full 9 months pregnant, and I carried her late too. So I was baptized, and I think really the sweetest memory from that night was having John's father, Mike, there with us. He was really, really ill at the time, and he was part of the circle that we stood together with and held hands and prayed. And then he ended up dying several months later. And I think God was setting the stage for me, really. God is good, and His plan is perfect always. And none of us knew all the trials and tribulations that we were getting ready to go through with all the people that would soon die in our family. And but He knew. And He knew I needed to be ready. And so He prepared me. There's no way I could have gone through the next few years without my faith in Jesus Christ.
Jesus is calling, calling, oh sinner, come.